I feel like I'm like in a herd of buffalo, and they're all stampeding toward a 1,000-foot drop-off, and they're just running over the edge. And I'm in that herd. And I'm like, I ain't going there, you know. I'm not going to go down that way. So I have to somehow affect the whole herd so that they will take a left turn or a right turn and not go off this edge. And so if humanity takes the planet down the tubes, I'm dead. I'm trying to save my ass. And that is a powerful force.
Wonderful, inventive, unique person who looks at life in a different way from most people. Yes, always full of ideas. In fact, when Mike becomes quiet, you know that there's an idea hatching. Ahead of his time, unusual, likes to do things his own way, stubborn.
I was raised as a Baptist. No dancing, no drinking, no gambling. So I got the hell out of Dodge. I went to architectural school in the University of Cincinnati, took all the architectural courses, got my degree, and I began right then to think that architecture as it stood then was worthless. Had nothing to do with the planet. It had barely had anything to do with people and what they needed.
I love to draw, I love to build, but the profession of architecture is nowhere near addressing the issues that we are faced with. They have the opportunity to really guide us and take us to where we need to go. And they're not. They're taking us where we don't need to go.
We're running out of oil. We're running out of water. We have global warming. Population's expanding. For many reasons, we don't have time. We need to be doing something now, tomorrow morning.
To get your black water under control?
Yeah.
All right. Is that working like we wanted it to?
Do like 3 in each of these tops.
Yeah. The tops will be
Instead of
riveted
one,
together.
but, yeah, I'm just trying to get the thing.
I started all this thinking with quality of life in mind. We're talking about survival now. And it's all good.
So it's 24 and a half with no sun and power being used. That's the final overflow that just goes to the septic of this.
Yeah. But the final overflow for all the planters
Can still
is
come
right
off of
here.
here and go through here.
Yeah.
To hook into the septic.
Straight to the septic.
Okay, I'm there. We know that in the future we are rendering this planet damn near uninhabitable. So as we move closer toward that, we're trying to devise a method of living that allows people to take care of themselves. The Phoenix. There is nothing coming into this house. No power lines, no gas lines, no sewage lines going out, no water lines coming in, no energy being used. So we're sitting on 6,000 gallons of water, food growing, sewage internalized, 70-degree space year-round. What these kind of houses are doing is taking every aspect of your life and putting it into your own hands. A family of 4 could totally survive here without even going to the store. So that whole area is going to be food production, with birds and insects flying around. Then out here is going to be goats and chickens and ducks. So this will be literally an Amazon jungle with 20-foot tall trees and little platforms up there where you can hang out with trees, birds, parrots, canaries, you know, bugs, bees, butterflies. It's a direction for humanity, really. I've been doing it for 30 years, and I think I'm starting to scratch the surface of what is available in this gold mine that we're starting to penetrate.
K-Town Solar 1019, the world's most powerful solar radio station, and it's time to open up the sports page for today, and I got to tell you what a wild, and I mean wild, week it was in high school football playoffs over the weekend. 2 of the most shocking results, I think, in the history of high school football.
Mike's biggest obsession is work. Definitely work. And I wake up in the middle of the night to get a drink of water or something. There's Mike laying there, staring into space.
I'm always dreaming about the room that I'm working on or whatever. I was sleeping, I had a dream, and I just saw this seashell type shape that you would walk into. But then I took the sketch to Ted and told him, you know, I just dreamed this, Ted, and here's what I'm trying to get. And I made pictures and everything. And then we talked about how to do it, and then Ted made it happen. And I take my dreams to them, and they make my dreams happen. And then it becomes their dreams too. And the bottles, they're jewels, you know. This is garbage. And it comes out like stained glass jewels. My dad saved everything. Mayonnaise jars, milk cartons, keys. He saved everything in the basement. And you go down there, and every mayonnaise jar that we had ever used was down there. He didn't know what to do with them. He didn't really have uses for them. He just said, that's too good to throw away. This is the first house built out of beer cans. It's called the thumb house because it looks like a thumb. See, it's actually in as good a repair as any of the ones after it. But see, there you can see, there's still, you know, that's the beer can building blocks right there. We made houses with bricks in my world. So I made a brick out of cans, wired together with little pieces of foil for reflectors. I built 2 or 3 houses this way and went on to just using cans by themselves. a solid wall 35 years later. First hint of the beginning of orienting windows to the south. I was just getting aware of the fact that you can get some solar gain into a room by doing this. From doing what I've been doing as long as I have and seeing that cities are real close to dying or falling apart because of all the infrastructure failing, and they're just dangerous areas of chaos that can't support themselves any longer. So I see them getting abandoned, and I see beyond that people going back to the cities just to mine out the goods. What else do we have on this planet that we throw away and we have it in abundance? Tires. Tires were resilient and thermal and super strong and didn't take cement, and you know, you can build a whole tire wall with dirt and a shovel and tires.
He's totally obsessed. He's very one-pointed, very single-minded, and yeah, he has very strong focus for certain things.
And we beat the earth into the tires with sledgehammers, and it was really tight. It was like a compacted 90% brick. In the early 70s, they're talking about solar and trying to store thermal mass in houses, and I'm getting a bit of a consciousness of thermal mass. Beating dirt into tires was mass. Mass holds temperature. And I'm like, oh my God, this thermal mass thing is intense. I mean, it's like, man, it's powerful. Thermal mass, once you have established it around you, it doesn't go away. This is the first one that we actually called an airship. I needed a house because I was just getting married to Chris, and here it is 20 years later, and we still live in it because it works. Very simple, easy to build. That's all beer cans plastered over. There's no doors, there's no wall. It's basically a series of U-shaped rooms, all connected with a greenhouse. All of the glass is facing the sun, and the low winter sun comes right in and floods the house and is absorbed into the massive walls of the tires and just stored there. Just heating-wise, there's just no heating bill. There's no heating or cooling bill here. We have a fireplace. We use it on Christmas. And that's it. It's a big deal to get ready for winter here because you can die because it gets 30 below, even 35 below 0 Fahrenheit here. Your tongue can freeze to your lips if you aren't careful. It gets that cold. And here we've been living here almost 20 years with no heating system. That takes a huge bit of stress off of the person, but it also takes it off of the planet. This is a compound that we started working on 30 years ago. This is like a little testing site, really. This whole decade of work here was just evolution. You couldn't worry about what it looked like, you just wanted it to work. Then we built a giant windmill here that's been taken off of the building now, and it worked so well that we had to build a building around it because it was about to take off. It made a huge amount of power. So all of these buildings just represent trial and error experiments and a learning situation. That's the first building right there. They call it the grandfather of earthships because it was the first building that really tried to put it all together. This was the first absolutely off of all grids building that we did, and maybe first one that was ever done. I mean, it's definitely a wild shape, made to go up and get the wind. This was the first place where I put wind, solar, greenhouse, garbage building, everything together in one building, and this is what it ended up looking like. Everything was intense. Everything about what we were doing and the buildings and the life was just like absolutely striking intense the whole time. People would come out here and they'd never want to leave. It was a time of magic, that's what I can say. Living in that building, I mean, this is like 25 years ago. I had my own power. I had food growing. I didn't need heat. I was like, Jesus Christ, man. I am free. I am absolutely free. The state of mind that that put you in. You can get up in the morning and you own your life. I can do whatever I want because I don't have to do anything to stay alive. We have the potential to enhance the planet. Trees enhance the planet, though people could go way further. I can see the earth glowing like a sun just from what people do to it, just making the earth sing like music rather than shit floating in rivers and chemicals in the air and stuff like that. I've always thought that if you're doing something right for people, they'll find you. We put it out there on the website. We wrote books that got out there. Of course, all the magazine articles and everything got out there, and it attracted some people that ended up working for us. They became our crew.
Just three of us are coming back.
It's not so much an adoption, it's more like a punishment, maybe? Or a parasitic relationship, one of the two.
Well, whatever it is, we can't get rid of it, so we're trying to all live with it. I found Phil in a bus station crying. I took him in under my wing, and here he is.
Look at this drawing. I mean, I couldn't build a damn thing from that.
This is Ted.
Where did you meet? How did you take you here?
He was shit on a rock, I believe.
Why am I doing this? For money? Is he gonna get rich doing this?
No.
Yeah, he probably looks at us like his sons, and we look at him like a, like a stepdad, that you can hang out and party with.
And I always tell Mike that you're like a freak magnet. He attracts the weirdest people, the weirdest clients.
To put the crew together to build a community for themselves, you can't get any better than that.
So when we settled this community, we designated 10 acres, and they all got their memberships, which turned into actual building lots.
But we all paid the same amount, and we all drew a number out of a hat, and then we got the lot that we got.
I was so happy just to own a small piece of land. I didn't even know how big it was until we got the survey here. I just knew it went from over there to over there, and then I could put my house kind of in the middle of it.
It was fair, it was equal, the richer person couldn't afford the better lot, you know?
There were people that got in for very, very affordable prices. You know, a down payment less than spending a night out on the town at a fancy restaurant.
It was late September when we got out here, and the first snow was starting to fall, and we got out here late afternoon.
Yeah, I was trained as an architect and then graduated and chose to live in a dirt hole and build a house around myself.
Pitch my tent, it's windy as fucking hell. I'd come home from work and my tent would be like blown over. Okay, well, fucking fix my tent, go out and pound that evening, 7, 8 more tires.
It took us about 5 or 6 years to build the first part of it. And then we've added on, of course. But, you know, we did it on weekends and out of pocket.
So in about 2 months, I had my main U walls up, my tent right in the middle, blocked from the wind. I was like, this is fucking fantastic. You know what I mean? It's just like, I got a wind block.
We lived on the site in a little tarp structure in the bottom of the excavation here.
Living in dirt, living in an uninsulated space. My water would freeze overnight. I mean, I didn't have a flush toilet until this February, 11 years later.
I was inspired to build my Earthship by watching the amazing people around me who were doing it when they were pounding tires and living out of tarp tents, making spaghetti together on rainy nights and playing guitar in upside-down wheelbarrows for chairs and having bonfires.
I had never experienced a bunch of people working that hard. So I was like, wait a second, this isn't a bunch of hippies, you know? And I was like, yeah, there's the occasional hippie that this appeals to, but I was just like, this just made so much sense.
Their story of them building their Earthships with half-baked ideas that weren't as cool as they are now and doing it themselves on no money and working for us, trying to make a little money to get by on while they're doing it. A dozen of them in that subculture did it, and now they're all sitting there happy as hell.
I was gonna say because we have a spider in our house.
She doesn't know the difference between this house and a conventional home like that I grew up in. But it's just part of her that the house takes care of her and supplies power and heats itself and has plants that provide food, and and the water comes from the roof. She knows all that, and she thinks that's the way it is, and that's the way everyone needs to think.
This used to be my office. It's really probably about 30 years old. And these are the old gallon creosote cans. So we were just using everything. This one was supposed to make you fly like a crow. So we wanted the vision of living this way to take off. But we were in Magic Land, for sure, for a long time.
Somebody's got to be outfield. Hopefully we make player negotiations.
The crew always becomes like a family, and we would work together for 4, 5, 6 years, and then another group, they'd fade out and others would come in. Here in the last decade, though, these people ain't going away. The people that are with me now, they've been here 10 years. They say this is their life. and this is my life, and so they're beyond family. We're here for the duration. You discover gold in your backyard, you have to work to keep it a secret. All of a sudden we're getting requests from all over the country and world to do earthship communities, and so on. So then I got the idea myself. Well, I'll do a community myself. It's an off-grid sustainable community. Translate this into cities? Holy shit. I bought the land up at Reach to do the Reach community because I wanted to really challenge the concept on the slope of a mountain where no power water could be gotten or whatever. We learned the systems at Reach, power, water, and sewage. And it was, in fact, the first New Mexico sustainable testing site. Reach was successful. Now I want to go further. So I go on the other side of town and I get 650 acres this time. You spend thousands of dollars in the process of getting land to have a house on. That's ridiculous. Why don't I just buy a chunk of land, not make any profit on the land, just have everybody own it in common, and all their money goes straight to their house? We don't need infrastructure. Each one of our buildings has everything it needs, power, water, sewage right in it. We took thousands and thousands of dollars of expenses out of the equation, and it worked. Now we have a bunch of people out here, no mortgage payment, no utility bill, and they're happy, and we are ongoing. I'm not saying that I really consciously wanted to use people as guinea pigs. But I was using a life situation as a guinea pig in a sense because it could not work out for you. People piss and moan if there's the slightest little problem, and you learn from that. If they're all complaining about it being too hot or too cold or not enough electricity or not enough water, we're going to learn and we're going to fix it. Well, this was the one where I had the two-story greenhouse. It originally had a sloped front face on it, which just basically caught too much sun. And it was too hot. No, we had ventilation and everything, but the sun, just the direct winter sun coming in at a slope 2 stories high, was just too much. Some guy wanted to buy the house. He's a rich kid who came out here to just be in the wilderness and said, I'll pay anything for it. And I said, okay, I'll have you sign a release that it is an experimental house and you can buy it. Calls me up like a couple of months later and has me come over. Says, will you come over? I got a problem. And he took me in his kitchen, and he is a writer. And he had an heirloom typewriter out on the kitchen table working. And the typewriter was melting. The plastic was running. I learned that this is powerful. You know, I want to learn to control it. You know, I'm just glad I didn't kill anybody, you know, fry a baby or something. You know, fuck.
It takes clients to develop ideas in building. You can't figure out all your ideas on your own one house. You need many houses to do it on. You can't afford to build many houses, so you do need clients.
And people take issue with him because in the early days he did it badly. The houses leaked, they were hot, they looked like they landed from Mars or another planet.
Most of the time, you'll get good clients that realize that it's experimental what you're doing, and some things may not work, or some things could be better. Then you get the occasional client who thinks, oh, it's experimental, but everything must work perfectly because that's how houses are. And then those people, they're disappointed, and sometimes they sue.
When you're doing something like running sewage through the living room and building a building out of garbage, if you really do seriously fuck up, it's 10 times as bad. And so, if I had a roof leak, it was lawsuit. If I, had a smell in a bathroom, it was lawsuit. If I had a house that was 60 degrees rather than 70, it was lawsuit.
The powers that be in the architecture world and in the planning world, they just can't see any other way than the way they've got established. And that's how the board of architects basically crammed down his throat that no, there's only one way to do an architectural contract, and this is it. And if you can't do that, then you can't be an architect.
The architects board asked me to bring charges against Mike Reynols. So everything that he was doing fell outside the scope of what New Mexico would consider legal construction.
She said, basically, they're going to nitpick you to death for the rest of your life because of what you're doing.
Standardized design and construction is so important because it means safety.
I was breaking rules and laws right and left. There's no question about it.
It's not just the design, but it was actually the building of these earthships that was a problem.
Which, granted, he wasn't playing by the fucking rules. Rules are made to be broken.
I was twisting the law to try to get sustainable housing out there, folks.
The worst outcome that could have ever been for Mike was he'd lose his license, and he did.
Every time we stuck our head out of the foxhole, we're getting our fucking face shot off. And the county writes me a letter saying that it has come to our attention that you have developed 3 communities which may be in violation of one or more of the aforementioned regulations. And here I was breaking every law in the book, and I said, well, Fred Navarez said I can do that. Well, he's dead. Who the fuck are you?
Suddenly, there was a change of planning regime, and within a few weeks' time, everything started to go really badly for the company and for the community.
They had a big notebook like this thick, even thicker than this, Reynolds subdivision violations. Subdivision law stated that to convey property, you have to have power, water, sewage. You have to have everybody owning their specific piece of land. You have to prove that you can provide all these utilities to it. You have to put in roads. You have to do all of these super expensive things to qualify as a subdivision.
When I was hired to be planning director in 1995, that was one of the first charges they gave me, was to make sure that everybody lived by the same rules. They didn't put any roadways in. There's no service, no water. They didn't put anything in. And the state legislature at that time just said, okay, enough is enough. We filed 5 subdivision actions at the same time.
He came out with his code enforcers with guns on. I mean, they shut us down. So I got busted on building, architecture, and subdivision all at the same time. I busted my ass for like 10 years to be
an architect, and it was taken away from me. I mean, there's no way that's not going to shake you up to some extent in terms of questioning your own competence and abilities. And are you doing the right thing?
We fired the crews and we're down to 2 or 3 people. And
job sites were shut down, and people that were waiting to build, their permits were denied even though the county had already cashed their checks.
Spirits fell low and people moved out, and there wasn't a lot of work, and you felt like the county was disapproving of what you were doing even though you were trying to do something good for yourself.
Even logic failed at that point to some extent because there were so many things against me. I'm looking at like I've lost my method of livelihood, I've lost my respect, I've lost my credentials. Basically, I had lost everything. What do I do?
When people ask you what your heroes are or who the people that influenced you or impressed you, one of the first ones I ever say is Noah, of course.
He built a boat, giant wooden boat out in the middle of the desert, and there was no sea around, and he was building a boat, and they were calling him a fool. But he saw something coming.
He didn't draw for 2 years. You know, he didn't draw a house design, or he wasn't able to think about any details or how to, improve upon the buildings. So, yeah, he was just occupied by law.
Just the atmosphere around the entire company was, everything was in question.
At this point, I'm assessing my life and my situation. Do I want to spend the next decade proving these people wrong on an ego trip? Or do I want to, however I can, prove sustainable housing and building? I went in with my tail between my legs. I said, what do you want me to do? And they said, be a subdivision.
To make the Greater World a legal subdivision, Mike had to develop it in phases and then have the county come in and inspect every phase.
This is the application for phase 3 and 4 to be a subdivision. We have to provide 14 copies of this. Archaeologists had to walk the land and look for arrowheads. That cost $20,000. And all they did was walk around and pick up arrowheads. Engineers had to engineer the terrain and make diagrams and drawings that nobody ever uses. That was $14,000. Just endless horse shit. We have a person who could not see any bigger than the rule book. And I think that's the issue that we have before us right now on this planet. We got lots of people that can't see any bigger than the rule book. And beyond the rule book is global warming.
The amount of expense and time, I mean, it was years of his life and other people's.
It took us 7 years to completely get the entire development open again.
Yes. Yes. What up, Mike?
Hubba, hubba, hubba. All of a sudden, I went from a turd in the punch bowl to, a flying fish.
They now see him as a shining example of how to create a subdivision in Taos County.
Jumped through all the hoops and became a legal subdivision, selling acres of land and lots and building a repetitive little generic house. For a period of time there, I was not exploring. I was not evolving. I was taking what I had learned to that date and keying it in to convention as clearly and legally and straightforward as I could to try and not make any waves, just do something that they could relate to for a few years and get stable with the powers that be.
We lost this ability to dream an idea and do it the next day.
He lost the right to experiment and create new buildings and innovations on the buildings.
You've got to be able to make mistakes. Otherwise, you never evolve housing type. And so that's what the rest of the country is still stuck in the same housing that they were in World War II or World War I. It's the same exact housing. Everybody's so stressed about getting sued that they can't make a single mistake, so there's no evolution of design.
I had lost the freedom to fail. We're facing a future where we're really going to, on an individual basis, going to have to take care of ourselves. New Mexico's the state where they tested the atomic bomb. They designated several thousand acres of land to be just absolutely destroyed with something that they didn't even know whether or not it would keep on exploding or not. They took extreme risks in the interest of national security. So what I'm saying is, can't we make a few 100-acre test sites with no holes barred to test methods of living for the future? It's a test site. They allow it for bombs. They test automobiles. They test airplanes. They should test housing. At this point, then, I began to realize that we needed a change in law and legislation to open the door for these kind of things to emerge. This time I wasn't going to fight the county. This time I was going to fight the state.
Sometimes to fight the system, you have to get into it, and be part of the system. Mike in a suit is hilarious.
I loved it when he put on a suit. Oh my God.
I think it's hilarious. I think it's great. I think he looks like a homeless car salesman or something.
It's fun to see him get up in there, though, It's like a thumb in the butt of, reality right there.
I'm not a screaming, flaming hippie trying to badmouth the existing system. I am a part of the system. I have become a Trojan horse. I have infiltrated the system. I am the system now. Okay, Senator. What was that horse shit you were just saying there? Don't be talking to me that way. I've crawled up their asshole, and I'm going to change them from the bloodstream. I was walking into an arena that I had no experience and no skills for. It's an extreme bill. It's an extreme thing to give citizens the right to step outside the law for 5 or 10 years. But outside the law is the place where the information lies. And I'm just saying, let us go get it.
Yeah, this building is a recipe for illness.
Have you got a list of senators you need to talk to this morning?
Yes. I'm just going down the list.
No,
Except
see.
I'm not going to
Make sure you get to him.
Martinez and Grubasek.
And see if you can talk to Lorraine.
Totally lobby the shit out of the whole Judiciary Committee. Get them, try to talk to them, get them the flyers.
You really have to demonstrate to everybody that you're working within the system, that you're not coming from outside the system.
Basically, it's going to be called the Sustainable Development Testing Site Act.
Okay.
I had to tweak every aspect of my being just to be there. You know, play a game. It's like some kind of a board game, and the building is round, and you just run around in circles in this building, talking to one person, talking to another person, trying to get into this meeting, trying to get into that meeting. That's a sewage system in a living room. Not asking for money, just permission to test.
I understand. It's a regulatory issue.
Yeah. Every kind of a demon or troll or ambush you could possibly imagine was there waiting to devour you and your bill.
All it takes is one guy coming in here that you didn't talk to, who has a connection on this committee, the boogers your bill. One wrong word from the right person, and you never know how your bill died.
We take this technology all over the world, and in every country, the same problem exists. How do we permit this? This is too unusual. We're asking for what we call test sites. If a person gets an idea, the next morning they can be out there building that idea. It's like a gladiator or something. You have to go out there and fight off all of the people that are trying to ravage your bill for whatever political reason. Defending the legalities of the bill against a bank of lawyers who can double talk me up one side and down the other.
How independent is the word independent? It's independent of conventional grids and disposable systems.
What it got to was picking apart words and meanings.
On page 3, line 10, you use the term real people. How are unreal people defined?
There was a tremendous amount of restraint to keep me from splattering people and papers all over the walls of that fucking building. You know, there were many times when I wanted to just stand up, turn the desk over, and say, this is a load of horse shit.
I believe in the Constitution we don't call people real people. We call them something else. Randall, is there a term other than real people for real people? Is there a legal term?
I'll find one for you.
Okay, so in other words, what you also mean is
the things you say in your definitions. I just think that the bill was drafted very unusually, but
He's all over it, man. He doesn't want any of this flowery language.
Where's delete? How do I delete?
And then you're going to physically have to draw a line through it, your deletions.
It will not let me change it.
In a dozen different committees with 7 or 8 people on each committee, and each one having a little bone to pick about it, we had to just shred the bill piece by piece by piece and deal with everybody's comments on it. Cannot be sold. Include real people. Provision for research. They were making destructive criticisms just to stop it because they just didn't understand the need for it. The bill drafter, Gary Carlson, was the one who had to piece that all back together. Me again.
1,000 more changes, right?
No, not 1,000, like 8.
he just got tired of seeing it over and over and over again come back for redraft. But they're minor. They're like one word. They're little crafty things. The whole attitude of the whole thing was we haven't even begun to think of the ideas, but nobody's going to unless they have a forum in which to do it.
What other ideas are out there that you're thinking that would be viable that haven't been tried or tested?
They were just trying to get their brains around this bill, so I had to like pull answers out of my ass, really. Building a building out of water, building a building out of contained water. There are other ideas out there. I don't know what the fuck they are, but they're out there, and we want this bill to allow us to find them. Everybody's got an agenda. And so when you talk about going through that many committees with that many people and all their different agendas and all the different politics involved, this process was laughable.
America has the safest, cleanest housing in the world. My concerns relate to really life safety and health issues.
I'm not sure how you can exempt them from some rules and regulations and then say at the same time they're not being violated.
And I wouldn't want to send a piece of legislation that has contradictions and
it's unclear, you know, I mean, again, it's just inconsistent language, and I find there's a lot of inconsistent language throughout this bill.
I have a substitute motion to table, which is not debatable.
Representative Cheney?
Yes.
Representative Ezell?
Yes.
Representative Foley?
Yes, ma'am.
Ridiculous amount of human energy mustered and wasted and pissed away to get a teeniest little thing done.
6 to 3, bill has been tabled.
Tabled with 4 days left in the session is a death sentence for the bill. We were out of time. The dream would have been to have an inside connection to this one committee of lawyers, Judiciary Committee. If we could get advice on how to get through that committee, we would have a chance.
Thank you.
It would make it easier for people to choose to develop sustainable methods. That's the crux of it.
How do we know that these aren't just a bunch of hippies getting together to set up some kind of commune and not really doing anything but just sort of, you know, talking the talk, not walking the walk? If this were to take off, then the utility companies are somewhat threatened by this because there are alternatives available to people, and they're no longer feeding into a system that obviously is pretty money hungry. So how do you answer that?
Actually, the utility, Kit Carson Electric up in Taos, likes me because I can get power to people that they can't, that they just don't have time to deal with and run the lines and everything. So right now, it's not a problem.
It takes vision. It does. My mom, when I was a little girl, she gave me this card, this tiny little cat that turned into a big line. Said, "Think big." You think big, and I appreciate that.
Thanks for the help.
I'll see what I can do.
That. She's the first one who really tried to understand the bill. If I can persuade her to write a good analysis of it, it's in. Isn't that true?
Yes, I know.
Okay. All right, so you're going to come back with me in an hour?
So, you know, now, this language here, structures and systems that inherently produce utilities and life support systems for any, it's too woo-woo. We got to redraft it so that it sounds more credible, more legitimate, more in line with conventional thinking. It's a natural entity. Initiate, let's say that, benefit generations.
Okay. On a quick update, I think it's 60-40 with Z.
Let's see how good she is.
She knows where the power is. She doesn't have it. She steers it and directs it. She went to
every representative on that committee, no matter where they were, in session or whatever, and pitched the bill. You know, she worked these people. She worked each person on the committee and won them over one at a time.
This is the telltale thing right here. If she comes out with it cold, we're in. And if she comes out with it not cold, we're out. This is basically it right here.
Now we got Mimi, we got Gail, we got Al Park, and Balderas was there too. They talked to Balderas. We got 4.
That woman is fucking amazing.
Hubba hubba. We got it. Huh?
Tired now.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty good too, 9 to 2.
Got out of judiciary 9 to 2. It might just make it. There's not any obstacle left. There's just time now.
We were 3rd on the list, on the schedule. We made it to the floor, ready for the vote.
Madam Speaker, I asked him a question, and there's a difference between yielding the floor and asking a question.
You said you would yield to the gentleman from McKinley, and we are waiting for his response.
Madam Speaker, we want to call the House, please.
State Police, will you please lock the doors?
We asked for a roll call, Mr. Speaker.
You got the roll call.
Mr. Speaker, we want to call the House, please. Call the House.
Sergeant at Arms, get Youngberg. Will you please lock the doors?
They filibustered all the time away on purpose.
No, sir. Call the House takes precedence, Mr. Speaker.
And they just eat up time, blabbing. It's kind of a leverage thing. They were wanting to get something from the Senate. It's games. It's games. The legal process is okay if you've got forever to be farting around with slow change. The problem is, on the planet now, today, we need fast change.
World famous solar radio, K-Taus 1019.
K-Taus Solar Radio national and international news. From Indonesia to India, a tsunami tidal wave triggered by a massive earthquake swept across the Indian Ocean. Thousands are feared dead in the Indian Andaman Islands. The earthquake measured 8.9 on the Richter scale. Seismologists say the force of the explosion was about 23,000 times the power of the atomic bomb that hit Hiroshima.
Group of architects from the island group of Nicobar, which is right in the center of where it happened, asked, could we do anything? And after a month since the disaster hit our islands, it is time we did much more than just food and medicine distribution. The need of the hour, as we see it, is 3 major components: shelter, sanitation, and clean water.
You see it as you approach from the boat, the tree line where the wave crashed through, and you just see everything crushed and washed away and devastation everywhere, and it was brutal.
Just don't really see how it could be much worse. An 8.9 earthquake followed by a 30-foot wave. 3/4 of the people are gone and half of them are dead.
God play the game for half and 1 hour. All are destroyed.
Not very long.
Not very long. It's a game of 1 hour. It's finished, man. Nothing. And after disaster, nothing, man. Only for dead bodies into the roads and buildings. Only dead bodies for child and women, girls.
It's like a bomb hit. Holy shit. Concrete is shattered.
There was 35,000 people and there's 7,000 left. We were just floored with the power of what we saw from nature and how it can just in an instant wipe out humanity. You are humbled by that kind of a situation.
This is my house.
That's your house?
Yeah. Only this place alive, only is myself, I think, right now. I'm here.
Wow. So you've lost a lot of friends?
Yeah, a lot of, all our friends are gone.
They're all gone?
All.
Yeah.
Here we'll sit together in this place for tea and
this is the corruption, this is the heroism. All rooms are like this. Just see this room, the same room. How can live a family in this room without bathroom or without this small space backside or front side? This is the matter, nothing more. 4 or 5, 6, 7 family members are living in this room. Yeah, I also got like this room, but I am sleeping in the road. How I sleep here? Much better than the public road.
I don't know who designed or figured this out, but it's not with people in mind. It's not sensible. It's a joke. This is not a solution. This is a mess.
Salt water from the tsunami wave came in and flooded out all the wells. So they had no water.
This house is...
Okay. This was your well?
Yeah, well. 2 dead bodies are inside. Spoiled.
The government is hauling water for them in trucks using gasoline. They're totally vulnerable, dependent creatures now. They lost everything. They basically have to start all over again from scratch. When there's an absolute breakdown of everything, then new ideas are clutched to like a lifesaver.
You know, right now, they want thinkers, they want planners, they want people to do something. It's like, do something, guys, it's crisis.
What we're trying to achieve is low-tech shelter, but very strong for earthquake, that uses local materials to make shelter that catches water.
And the whole bamboo structure is independent of the tire structure, so the tire structure could shake and the bamboo would slip, just sit there and slip.
Do you think this can withstand a 9 Richter earthquake?
Yeah.
It's like this.
You like him?
Hey,
There you go, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good job there. Not bad.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of people that have lost everything, and they're resilient.
They wholeheartedly jumped on the fact that this may be a way to keep them cool and give them shelter and give them water and treat sewage. There was no barriers. You go to a situation that's been devastated, the barriers are gone.
She's great, man. She keeps Phil and I fed with cement fast enough. Fully impressed, man. I'd take them all home with me.
1 rupee per bottle. Kids have come out to help us. Locals have come out to help us, and they're catching on. They're excited about what we're doing.
अभी बड़ा मनता बड़ा छोटा इसको बड़ा उसको छोटा बोलता छोटा मनता हाँ
We got the locals making the bricks, and they're doing pretty good. दूसरे में ट्राई करूँ
बाबा जी ठीक है बाबा और मनता और सिमट मनता बाबा सिमट हम देगा आप ना छोटा वाला काटो खत्म हो गया बोतल पूछो बाबा से और काटना हाँ काटना हम बोलता सिखाता है फिर इधर आओ इधर रखो
इसमें इसको भी सिखाओ ऐसी मारा बोतल सजाने को बोलो
बोतल सजाने को बोलो तुम बोलने से समझ जाएगा
हाँ बोतल का काम करेगा बोलता थोड़ा ये बैठेगा बोलता मसाला देगा बोलता मम्मी
Mommy wants to lay bottles? Go ahead.
सब इसी के अंदर इसको सेल्फ सस्टेनेबल हाउस बोलते हैं जिसके अंदर मतलब सब कुछ खुद का होगा बाहर से कुछ लेने का जरूरत नहीं जिससे कि पूरा घर का पानी सब कुछ हो जाए मतलब पीने का पानी भी इसमें से निकल सकता है
What is this?
It's a vent to draw air through under the floor, and it'll run over the water, like because the water will be under there, and the water temperature will cool the air, so the air goes up through the house and keeps the house cool.
इससे हम ये सब को बोलता है गिर जाएगा मिट्टी है ये नहीं रुकेगा बोलता है
बरोबर रुकेगा देखो पीछे कितना ये उबड़ खबड़ है ना ऐसा तो मिट्टी पकड़ के रहेगा ना
They have a lot of rain that they don't catch. So they have, in the climate of that island, everything they need. The roof was designed to collect the water and take it to gutters.
Trying to get a slope in the bottom of the gutter.
They have over 100 inches of rainfall a year, so there's no reason why they would even need wells in the future.
Hubba.
monsoons in here.
Are we catching water, Mike?
All right, so it catches water.
About 10,000 liters of water stored.
Yeah. No need for a well.
No need for a well, absolutely.
That's cool, isn't it?
It's a lot of water.
So it's like two umbrellas. Stop the sun from heating the second roof. Here it doesn't take 2 or 3 sentences to these engineers to say, look, we can build out of plastic bottles. We can build out of glass bottles. We can build out of tires. They get very excited. Telling we might make some real easy to follow, step-by-step drawings of how to do it.
It was great. It was fantastic to see something happen in 14 days when in 3 years it still couldn't happen in a developed country.
Okay, Michael. Hey. Thank you. As opposed to a building that is flat. The force of the tsunami is hitting it full on. When it's round, it's split.
Purely using the local materials. The worn out tires, used bottles, empty bottles, beer bottles, round bottles, and the used splash bottles, plastic bottles.
We gotta like beg on our hands and knees to build these in America, and here they're loving it and wanting us to do it.
Yeah. Tremendous, man. It's magic. It is magic, just like magic. I want to make every island in this type of earthship. In every island, 547 islands we have.
Very beautiful. Very beautiful and fantastic.
फिर चले जाता हम लोग को छोड़ के हाँ और आओ
Yes.
When you see how open people are immediately after a disaster, there's a real difference in the people and the opportunity here and the people and the opportunity in the West. It's almost like a disaster has to happen to cause the rest of the world to start preparing. And then it'll probably be too late.
Nature can absolutely wipe out people.
K-Town Solar Radio National and International News. America in crisis. Hurricane Katrina has devastated the Gulf Coast. It's been described as the fiercest storm in American history.
People are dying. They don't have homes. The city of New Orleans will never be the same.
The vast majority of New Orleans, Louisiana is underwater. Tens of thousands of homes and businesses are beyond repair. We are dealing with one of the worst natural disasters in our nation's history.
It's too doggone late.
How can one punch from the gods collapse the richest and most highly developed society in the world?
Tropical storms may be growing in overall intensity due to human-induced global warming.
All of a sudden, the storm is not a storm. It's the end of days. I was almost getting casual, and there's no hope for that now. There's no way to get casual. It's like an emergency.
When things get confusing, we look to what is eternal and true to give us a sense of guidance. When things get chaotic, we look to what is lasting and unchanging to give us a sense of calm. The cynical Machiavelli said that wisdom consists in being able to distinguish among dangers and making a choice of the least harmful.
Katrina wiped a major U.S. city away. After Katrina, hundreds of thousands of people are crying at the government because the government is not taking care of them. This bill would allow individuals to take care of themselves with their own methods. It's like going to the people and saying, everybody out there, use what's in your mind and try and come up with some better ways for us to live because we don't have enough of them right now.
As soon as an environmental activist stands up and says that, it's over with.
The Honorable Bill Richardson, Governor of the State of New Mexico.
I don't think they make the connection between natural calamities and global warming. I think they think it's a fluke. You're coming up with something that people are resistant to because they don't want to look at the problem to begin with. If you don't want to look at the problem, then why would you want to hear about a solution? You're doing this for their children and their grandchildren. You have got to make them aware, not to scare them, so be careful with the language you use.
Every time you open your mouth in committee, it's a liability. You should know that by now.
You don't want to scare people so much that they're paralyzed by their fear, because that's what this culture is. That's how Bush got into office twice. People are terrified, and it's just feeding on itself. You know, 9/11, terrorism, and these are very real things. I don't mean to discount them. But the earth is burning.
Just been told not to mention anything about global warming, oil shortages, or anything.
Do not use global warming as a justification for
we've
this.
already,
It's jobs and economic development and new technology.
Yeah. They're having some kind of a windfall because of Hurricane Katrina is affecting the revenue of the state of New Mexico because New Mexico is selling a lot of oil right now.
The Bush administration is trying to suppress global warming science for the sake of protecting the profits of the fossil fuel industry.
You cannot prove global warming as a fact, and with good science cannot prove global warming. It's a myth.
It's not easy to face the truth. It's easier to pretend that it's not really happening.
House Bill 697 with emergency clause, House Bill 22, House Bill 401 as amended by the House with emergency clause, House Bill 361. And
from the design side, a lot of those projects are not very pretty. As a matter of fact, a couple I've seen are downright ugly.
This type of housing is not unique or new to New Mexico.
I think it leaves way too much vagueness.
How does this mesh with the Subdivision Act?
It's not a cash project. Research is expensive. Research costs money. We're not trying to make money.
It is passed. House Bill 42 as amended by the House, House Bill 266 as amended by the House, House Bill 240. House Bill 196.
I often take years to pass bills. You know, you work at it, and then the next time it's a little bit better.
3 years is actually a pretty short time to get a major law through.
Law is slow, but the planet's going down the tubes fast.
But law is slow.
So I don't have time for law. I'll break the law if I have to. Politics does slowly grind things out. And that's fine if we had hundreds and hundreds of years on this planet. We have decades left on this planet of life as we know it. And American politics is a fucking dinosaur that is not going to make it. It's just going to come to a grinding halt.
This vote is about to close.
The American dream, in my opinion, is in the toilet. It's history. It's gone. The American dream is now, how do we survive the future? It's not having 8-bedroom home with 11 bathrooms. It's not having a career and a lawn and all of the amenities. It is simply, how does our children and our children's children even have a chance at life?
Searching for sweet inspiration, feeling right. And you got the tools you've been given to build this fire tonight. We got to work together now and do it right. Do it right, yeah. Sister, my brother, ride on. Yeah, gonna help one another. My sister, my brother, ride on. You're never alone. Lion guide, hold your head high. Jazz everywhere you roam. Now you got the tools you've been given. We got to build this fire tonight. We gotta learn to work together to do it right. To do it right, yeah. Yeah, it's not an easy road, they've been telling me. But I know that it's the only road that I know. And all along the way, they'll be my friends and family. We got to help one another, my sister, my brother, ride on. Yeah, gonna help one another, my sister, my brother, ride on.